so that we can, save some time for this afternoon. The topic, as it is mentioned in the agenda, it's about communication skills and commercialization skills in engineering. It's a very important topic. So we have several panelists with us from the US, from Morocco, from Tunisia. And as you know, engineering projects now are planned and implemented across national and international borders. So for that, we need really to communicate with people. We need communication tools. And I'm taking communication tools in the broad spectrum to include, among others, writing, English, French, Arabic, any language, maybe internet as a communication tool. So I'll start with our panelists. The first one, Professor Miller. Okay. Microphone. Take it.
Yes, let's put it right here. All right, hello. As you all know, I'm Professor Scarlett Miller from Penn State University. So I think some of the things I would like to say today are basically suggesting or alluding to some of the facts that were just brought up, that communication is just not about spoken English. Communication is not just about written, whatever the language is, but it is also in the way that you, the confidence that you have within yourself. And I think that the goal is really to come up with a variety of ways to communicate with individuals. So I brought up that in my class we have websites that talk about class projects. I make my students write design reports at the end of the semester. I spend a lot of time with them working on those. And I actually do something with my class, which is we actually got it from Japan. It's called Pecha Kucha. Which is 30-second slides. So we set up a PowerPoint presentation, and each slide goes for 30 seconds. It's timed on PowerPoint and immediately fast forwards. So students have 30 seconds to talk about each slide as it goes through the presentation. Now, the reason I do this is for a number of reasons. One is in class, when you're doing presentations, sometimes it can take up the majority or the bulk of class. But the other thing that really helps with this is when your slides are going to move forward on their own and you're not allowed to go back, what it teaches us is to practice, because you have to know how long 30 seconds is and how much you can cover in that amount of time. The same goes for when you're doing presentations. The amount of text that you put on your slide is another big key issue. So a lot of times we'll find that we're putting a lot of text or a lot of information on our slides that's not possible for anyone to read or see in the amount of time that we're actually talking about it. So you'll notice that in most of the slides that I use, there's usually like one picture or one quote, because I want you to be listening to me, and I want the slides to be something that's actually just helping you understand what I'm saying. But I've also been talking with the students yesterday about the importance of sketching, whether it be hand drawings or AutoCAD or SolidWorks or whatever the modeling software is. But visual communication is a very key aspect of engineering, and it's often something that we don't really talk about. In fact, it wasn't until this semester that I brought in someone to teach my students how to sketch, because I myself don't feel comfortable drawing. I feel like I'm a terrible sketcher or drawer. And so we're trying to break some of those bounds in our engineering program to get students used to communicating, because being able to speak an idea versus be able to show what you mean in visual form is a very important aspect that we don't normally focus on. So those are just some of the key points that I want to bring up, and I'd be happy to answer any questions as we go along.
So as you see, I mean, the tools given are presentation, sketches, and drawings. Very important, didactic tools in the classroom. Now we're going to have Rick, maybe just to give some idea about the what we call the emotional EQ features and leadership.
Great, thanks. Now I got this microphone here. I teach a course every fall, and the two topics we cover in this class are culture and communication. That's it for the entire semester. And this class is a prerequisite for all of my students who, in the spring semester, will then interact and engage in virtual teaming with business students in Hungary, or visit Morocco and engage in co-located teaming here. So these are two really important things. The way we approach communication is on sort of three levels. Number one, we tend to have a communication style based upon our national identity or our regional identity. And there's some very nice research and work that's been done by Gert Hofstede. And the book is called Cultures and Organizations, Software of the Mind. And Hofstede analyzed IBM offices across the world and gathered data on the sort of the cultural typology or the cultural personalities of different countries. And there really are. There are very distinct differences in how people view uncertainty avoidance, power distance index. So in other words, the distance between you and your supervisor. How close you can get, and even physically, how close you can get, but how close you can get on a relationship basis. So clearly, when you're communicating, you need to think about, especially communicating across cultures, what those specific cultural differences are. That's number one. Number two, from a professional perspective, as engineers, we have our own culture. We're different than other people. And this is not only my opinion, there's actually been some scientific work done on this. There was a significant amount of research gathered in the 1960s and 1970s where they developed almost a personality of what an engineer, at least in the United States, was. Often in the United States, now I'm going to attempt a joke, so I'll go slow. This is always dangerous. In the United States, it's sort of accepted that engineers are introverted. They don't speak much. They look down. They don't make eye contact. And so the joke is, how can you tell an introverted engineer from an extroverted engineer, one that is open to experiences? And the punchline is, the extroverted engineer looks at your shoes instead of his shoes. But you know, in the research that was done in the 1960s and 1970s, they found over and over again that engineers are not introverted at all. Engineers are extroverts. They're simply not interested in people that aren't engineers. This is funny. That's not a joke. That's actually the truth. Yeah, it's remarkable. So I think as engineers, when we're speaking with people, we need to understand that about ourselves. And I'm not saying that all of us now are disinterested in people that aren't like us, but it might be the truth. So I think from a professional perspective, as engineers, we need to be self-aware. And then finally, on the individual level, there are psychometric tools such as the Kiersey personality temperament sorter and the Jung typology, emotional IQ test, the Big Five. These are examinations, tests you can take online. They take maybe 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and they will tell you about who you are. Kiersey breaks down personalities and temperaments into 4 primary groups, which is nice. It's convenient. Artisans, idealists, guardians, and rationals. And the strategy that I would employ talking to an idealist and the type of slides I might show an idealist would be quite different than the slides I would show to a rational or to a guardian. So just as we need to be sensitive to cultural differences across nations and across regions, and just as we need to be sensitive to differences between professions, between marketing and engineering, we also need to be sensitive to differences between people and personalities and temperaments.
Thank you very much, Rick. As you know, it's clear that there is a lack of communication tools and skills in the engineering curricula, and that will undermine the image of the engineer in general, and will minimize the potential and the chance to get recruited. So And I know that engineers don't pay much attention to these points, and I think that's my own opinion. It's as important as the other tools of, analysis or synthesis tools that we acquired during our, study. Now I give the floor to Mr. John.
I'm the only non-engineer in the room, so is it on? Yeah, I'm the only non-engineer in the room. So after what Rick said, I hope you'll still listen to me. What I want to talk about is getting this something of a synthesis of what Scarlett and Rick said. Getting a clear sense of what you have and what you propose, your value proposition, is central to effective communication. In the United States, it's oftentimes called the elevator pitch, where you have 30 seconds to talk about exactly what it is that you can do and sell your idea in that amount of time. And I'm going to try to give you an example of how we've tried to do this at Emmett East. Not just on a communicative level, person to person, but actually related to our marketing campaign. So the mission of Emmett East is a bit long-winded. It's strengthening mutual understanding and cooperation between Americans and the peoples of the Middle East and North Africa. And usually, after about strengthening mutual understanding, people just kind of go, what? What we've tried to do, and what it really means, is we do 5 things. And this is going to be long-winded, which is the whole problem. We teach English as a second language. We do exchange programs, educational advising, testing, and professional training. Again, a little bit better than the mission, but pretty long-winded. What we did was we reduced it to 3 words: language, training, and leadership. That's clear, right? It took us a long time to synthesize that down, but getting a clear sense of what it is that you have and what you can propose to others is the center of effective communication, and then leads you into marketing. Because knowing your audience and projecting what you want to that audience is how you effectively market yourself and your company. And again, that becomes a very, very significant strategic advantage. And when developing a company, that's the center of the whole purpose.
Thank you very much, Joe. Now, Mr. Ali from Morocco, please present yourself first, and then...
Thank you. I'm Mohamed Eid Babram. I'm teacher of mathematics, statistics, and analysis of data. And I would like to take this opportunity to give some advice for our young engineering. I think that to be efficient in your works or in your proposal, I think that you should follow a démarche that I'd like to partage with you is MICS. In six stages, you should at first time to define your objective and your problematic, and by analyzing the needs of the industrial or your customers or your clients, if you see. And by these definitions, you can define the perimeter of target population that you should, for who will give your project. And in the second stage, you should take some data to analyze. I think that you should have a strategy, clear strategy to collect your data in order to analyze it. And in the third stage, I would like to see you should analyze your data, and but for analyzing this data, I think you need to have some tools on your hand, like statistics, computer science, and if you make a good analysis of your data, at this time you can innovate by finding some solution for your problem